Hello, everyone. Sorry, I think you just heard me coughing before we switched scenes here. Welcome to Creative Pro. I'm Kara Plichinich, and we're so glad you are here. What are we going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about masking. Yay! I can see from comments people are into masks and they can be a little bit confusing. So we're going to start off by talking about what is a mask? Why do you use them? How do you use them? And then I'm going to show you some tips and tricks to make them make more sense and just kind of be easier to work with. So hopefully that sounds good. I had a couple people messaging me and asking for some insights on making better masks, like really complicated masks. So if we have time, I would love to include some examples. But today we're going to focus not so much on making extremely complicated selections, but we're going to just really focus on layer masks in the layers panel and working with them and how and why you do that. So with that, I also want to point out we're going to be using, so much of Photoshop these days incorporates some AI, right? Especially when you're making selections, and selections are masks in a way, which is a little bit head trippy for people sometimes. But my point is we're going to be using some of AI's features, and I want to make sure to let you guys know that here at Creative Pro, we have an event happening next month that is going to be focused on AI, design and AI. So all kinds of amazing ways to use AI with Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Creative Cloud in general, and of course, all the other tools out there. And want to let you know, want to let you know that we have a discount code for you that you can use to save $100 with the code livestream. So we will mention that again here at the end so that if that's something that interests you, you can take advantage of it. So that said, let's pop into the chat and see what is going on. I love this, Rob. How you doing? How you doing, Rob? I'm good. Hopefully everybody is good. Let's see. What else? Oh, look at this. Sean says, I just registered for the Design and AI Summit today, and I am stoked. Well, hey, Sean, we are stoked too. It is going to be amazing. I plan to just clear my calendar and zone in on that, lock in, because it's going to be fast and furious and so much good information. All right, you guys, pop any burning questions you have in the chat because I'm going to be showing you all this mask stuff today. And the only way I know if it's breaking through for you is by checking your comments. So we'll do some work and then I'll pop over here and check in and see if you have questions about anything and, how I can answer them. So that said, let's pop over here to Photoshop and you can see I've got this fun Halloween image. Now, masks always make me think of Halloween and wearing a mask. And that is because obviously the word mask, but masks sort of serve a similar purpose in that they allow the contents of a layer, whatever that may be, they allow the contents of that layer to be seen or to not be seen. That's all they do. That's literally all they do. So just like a mask that you might wear on Halloween coming up, a mask might hide your face or all of your face or part of your face. Masks in Photoshop work the same way, the exact same way. So here is just a little sampling to show you kind of what's going on. So let's say that we've got this image here. You can see in the layers panel that this image is right here, right? It's on this layer. Now underneath I have some other things hidden. So perhaps this Halloween festival participant, this lady here, maybe she's not really all that she seems. Maybe, even though she looks more or less normal right now, maybe this is a disguise and she's hiding something else underneath. Let's find out with a mask. So I've got a mask already here. And when you work with masks, all you do is paint them. And there's a number of ways to do that, but you either paint them with black or you paint them with white or a shade of gray in between. So let's see what happens if I paint her face with black. Let's see what she might be hiding. Oh my gosh, she is a zombie monster. That is so terrifying. And I'm a huge nerd, all right? But here is the point. What are we looking at here? What have we just done? How did the mask do this? Well, like I said, masks show or hide the contents of a layer. That is all they do. So let's look what's happening here. Here we have this layer, which is a photo of this woman in a costume. And here next to it, we have this rectangle. This is the mask, and it was here already. I prepped it ahead of time, so it was ready for us to paint on it, but I'll show you how we get the mask in the first place. But for right now, just know that by selecting the mask in the layers panel, instead of painting on the image, right? If I paint on the image, I get black paint. But if I paint on the mask, I can reveal this scary, scary creature here underneath. So what I'm actually doing when I paint on the mask is I'm telling Photoshop to hide these parts of the layer. So I'm hiding this part of her face. And you'll see if I hide my secret background folder here, all I'm really doing is basically putting a hole in this layer. So a lot of people will think, well, why wouldn't you just use the eraser? And that is a good question because it means that you understand what masking is doing. It is basically erasing, only it's not getting rid of the contents of that layer. It is simply hiding them, just like a mask would hide your face on Halloween. So all I'm really doing when I'm painting on the mask in the layers panel is I am hiding more of her face, or I'm showing more of her face. And that has to do with which color I am painting with. So when I paint with black, I am like erasing, or I'm hiding parts of that layer. And when I paint with white, I'm restoring or unmasking those parts of the layer. So because we've essentially poked a hole in this mask or in this layer, because now I have something else below it, it is able to show through into our composite. Isn't that awesome? I love it. So yes, masks I think they're an essential part of Photoshop. You can get away with just erasing. However, the reason that you don't want to do that is that erasing is destructive. So if I erase her, instead of using a mask, if I just erase right here in this layer and I make a mistake, the only way to undo it is to literally undo. But sometimes we don't catch our mistakes until many, many steps later, right? And you don't want to undo and lose all that work. So instead of erasing, we use masks to just show or hide because they are editable. So I can come in here, maybe I zoom in and I'm like, ooh, what is this? I painted a little too far. We have this weird ghosting effect happening. I can just make my brush smaller. And now if I paint with white, not on the layer, but on the mask, you can see that I can clean this up. So maybe I don't want it to extend so far, or maybe I go too far. Now I've brought it back. I can switch, right? So you have flexibility, and that is why we do this with masks and not with the eraser. You can endlessly edit masks. They are non-destructive. So I hope this is starting to make sense. Let's look at another super simple example, and we're going to start just from the beginning. So this is just a fun Adobe stock image. So it's super simple. There is a door frame and a cloud. The cloud is not that well masked, but that's okay. It's all here in a single layer. So if we, let's say, add a giraffe to the scene, because of course I feel like the scene just demanded a giraffe. It was like screaming for a giraffe. Now let's say that we want our giraffe to appear to be coming through this door frame. So maybe this door frame is like a magical portal into another dimension. And so this giraffe is just walking into our scene from through the door, and we don't want to see the giraffe on the other side of the door. So if you didn't know about masks, you might think, okay, well, I'll select the giraffe and now I'll grab an eraser and I'm just going to come in here and like try and erase the giraffe. And, you know, you play this game. So we would do like this. And we hope that we're doing a good job and getting it all. It's kind of messy. Okay, so there we have a similar idea, but you can see that I didn't do the world's most perfect job. And now the only way that I could restore this area down here is to undo all that erasing that I just did. And that's just not fun, right? Because especially when you get into really complicated masking or selecting, you don't want to have to undo and lose all the work that you've done because it can be a lot sometimes. So instead, we add a mask. So first step is we need to add the mask to this layer. Right now, it's just the giraffe all by himself or herself. So what we want to do is add that mask. And there are many ways to do that. I'm going to just go with the simple way, which is down at the bottom of the layers panel, this little icon that looks, somebody in one of my classes one time told me, oh, the camera? Yeah, it does kind of look like a camera, doesn't it? It's a mask icon. But when you click on that, because we haven't made any selections yet, we've not done anything except put a mask on, the mask shows up white. And a white mask is like a blank mask. It's like not a mask. It's like a see-through mask. It's not hiding anything. And I'll show you some ways to think about that in a minute. But that's it. So now we have our mask, but it's blank. We haven't actually masked anything. It's just waiting for us to mask. So there's a lot of different ways we can do this. If we want to make a really clean, straight edge here, I might grab my rectangular marquee tool and draw a selection that is hopefully close. Okay, so I've made a selection now. I can scribble over it with black paint, or because my mask is active, we see that in the layers panel because it has that outline around it. So we know the mask is active. So now if I do something like fill my selection with black, it will paint that black on the mask, which remember, the black is what blocks that layer from being seen. So let's just do that. I'm just going to come up. We'll do it the longhand way. We'll go to edit, fill, and we're going to choose for contents. I'm going to say black. And now look at that. It filled the mask with black, not the actual layer. There's no black happening here. It's all in the mask. And now when we delete the marching ants, we can see that the giraffe is coming behind the door frame. So for this area down here, let's just use our brush. So I'm going to just grab my brush tool. I'll make my brush a little bigger, and we can just brush in here and get rid of all of this. Make our brush really big and do it in a quick swoop. Okay, now here's the magic, because if we go too far and erase like this, what we want to do then to fix it is just switch to painting with white. So the easiest way to do that, so we're not mousing all the way over to our toolbar 100,000 times, is we just press the letter X, like exchange, right? And that's going to flip-flop those two colors so that we now have white on top. And white is going to allow the giraffe to be seen. I'm going to make my brush a little softer here. And so now we're going to be able to see the giraffe. So we're painting the giraffe back. We're unhiding him or her by painting like so. And you can change the size of your brush to get a softer or a harder edge on your mask. But there we go. Now our giraffe is joining us from the fifth dimension or whatever's on the other side of that door and is stepping into our scene. So masking is a way to hide, but like erase, but better. So we're hiding, and that allows us to create composites, right? So we could have, I guess, erased part of the giraffe. Yes. We could have selected the door, copied it into a new layer, put it on top of the giraffe, but all of those things make a mess out of our layers panel, and they are destructive. Not that they're hurting our image, but they are not easy to edit. You can't just go back and fine tune that. So that is why we mask. Let me show you one thing and then we'll check in with the chat. So people often are like, okay, I kind of get it, but how do I remember which color shows things and which one hides things? And if you have been around in the Photoshop world at all, and you've ever tuned in for anything ever, anywhere about masking, you hear the phrase, white reveals, black conceals. And everyone's like, that's the magic phrase. Just remember that phrase. But here's the thing. You can say that phrase backwards and it would be wrong, but it would still rhyme. So you have to remember the right order to say it in, which doesn't make it a memory trick. Okay? I don't know why that phrase persists. It doesn't, I mean, like, it's correct if you say it right, but you could just as well say white conceals, black reveals. And like, does anyone even notice? Probably not. I never even know which way it's supposed to be. So when I say it, I never even know if I'm saying it right. It's confusing. So I offer you two alternatives that I think are better. Black starts with B and it blocks things from being seen. So that's how I just remember it, is that black blocks. That's one way. The other way is this right here. So let's go and take a peek at this image. So I like to think of it sometimes like having the light on in your kitchen. So if this is our kitchen and we add a mask and we don't have any active selections when we do it, then our mask is blank, right? It's white. So I think of white as being the lights are on. So when the lights are on in your kitchen, you can see everything. If we turn the lights off, now you can see I have filled my mask with black using a keyboard shortcut to fill with my current background color swatch. So my mask is black, my lights are off, I'm not seeing anything. Now, if I grab a brush and make it big, I guess, I can come in here and let's see what we can see in our kitchen. If I come and I paint right here, oh, that's the sink. I'm now shining a flashlight on the sink so I'm able to see it. So here, if we look at our mask, the lights are off everywhere except there's a little spotlight in white on the sink. So I can see that there's the sink. If we keep painting around, we see art on the walls. If we look down here, oh, here's some food that somebody just left out on the counter when they turned in for the night and shut the lights off. That's not good. But we can see all of this because we are shining a light on the dark areas of our kitchen. So just like you can't see anything when the lights are off, when your mask is dark, when it is black, you cannot see that layer. Does that make sense? Let me know in the comments. Let me see. I'm catching up here. Teresa says, I think of the white mask as a window shade that is fully open, letting all the light in. That's good. Yes, that also works. I like it. Rob says, I love that spotlight idea. And it's also okay to just realize, I mean, depending on what you're doing, and you can invert masks and you can do all kinds of things. It is easy to just get your head kind of hurting about it all. So, you know what? When I'm masking stuff, and sometimes I'm masking on one layer, but I think I'm masking on the other, and so that'll inverse it in your head. And when in doubt, if you're painting and oops, you're revealing more than you meant to, then just press X and paint again. Like you don't have to know which is which. You just have to paint. And if it's not what you want, press X and paint again. Like, don't make it overly complicated, right? Oh, yes. So Mary says it's selecting that I find to be a challenge that I would like to know more about, right? Selecting can definitely be a challenge. And they are related. These two things are connected. And we're going to see that right now. So let's go back here. Keep your questions or your comments coming. Let's go to this image here. So here is an image also from Adobe Stock. And this is just how the image was. And I thought it would be fun to put a different scene in the mirror. So I want the mirror to reflect something else. So I guess we're sort of turning it into a portal again. I'm all about portals, apparently, today. So let's do that. So as we saw a minute ago, we made the mask first and then we painted on it. That's one way to do it. But you can also make a selection and then use that selection to make the mask. And that's probably, I think, how most people mostly do it. I don't know. It just depends what you're doing. But let's start by selecting the area that we would like to insert a different scene into. So we can try the object selection tool. I tried this once and it worked perfectly, and then it didn't the other time. So we'll see. I'm trying to select just the glass, right? So we'll see if we can get it here. Ooh, so close. So I'm going to switch to my quick selection tool, and I'm going to hold down the Option or Alt key to subtract this little, and I went too far. Should have just used this tool probably from the get-go. Okay, so now we have the glass more or less selected. So let's turn on another layer here. So I have this scene of, I don't know, interstellar space or something. So what I want to do is I want this scene on this layer to appear only within this selected area. So we've got the layer, we have a selection. All we have to do now is make the mask. And because that selection is currently active, when we click the mask button at the bottom of the layers panel, it's going to turn that selection into a mask, and it's going to hide all of that layer that was not part of the selection. So basically, we're selecting the area we want to keep. And then by just clicking that mask button, Photoshop hides all the other parts of that layer. So cool, right? So that's another way to build these composites with a mask. And Of course, if we zoom in on this and we realize like, oh, like here's a little weird bit about his pinky. It looks like it got confused about the reflection on his pinky. Here's how we can test our mask and really see what we're doing. For one thing, if we double click the mask, the thumbnail in our layers panel, we get the properties open. And maybe I'm like, wait, what is showing here? Is it supposed to show? Is it not? I guess we're including the reflections of his fingers. So it should probably show. But if we were like, I want to see the mask and the image at the same time, we can reduce the density of the mask so that we can see what we might want to paint over. That's one way to do this. Then we could just grab our paintbrush, of course, and maybe I want to hide parts of this layer right here a little bit more. So I'm going to paint with black. Oops, got to have my brush tool. There we go. Why is it not? It doesn't want to give me my brush tool. Weird. There we go. So maybe I want to paint in, where is it? Here's the pinky back. So let's paint that back. You can see I'm painting with black to hide this layer. And now I want to reveal it along the edge of his pinky here. So we can play that little game going back and forth and cleaning out. Like here, there's a hole in his reflection. That's weird. We don't want that. And this should have a reflection also. So I guess I should have looked more carefully at that. Whatever the selection brush was doing. All right. So we'll just pretend that this is good. Okay, so we can edit that selection. We can adjust the density of that selection, which is like the opacity of the mask, in other words. We can also copy the mask. So maybe like when I was building this example, I was like, oh, believe me, I really overthought like what image should go in the mirror because I overthink everything. So of course, I tried many different examples. like it matters, right? But that's the level of care that I put into this. But let's see, what if we want to see some other examples in the mirror? We don't want to have to reselect the selection and then like make a whole new mask every time. So check this out. If I turn on another layer here, so here I put a little tornado in the scene, I can copy the mask from this layer up here by simply holding Alt or Option, and then I'm just going to drag it and drop it up here. Boom, instant mask. And now I can see what the tornado scene would look like in this composite. And guess what? Here I have some luscious leaves. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hold Alt or Option, drag the mask up here, and now we've got that in the scene. So now I could go through and like really compare these and see which do I like best. And that is how easy it is to copy these masks. Oh, good. I'm looking over here at comments. And let's see. Oh, yeah, selections. Selections are definitely easier with the new AI tools. Now, see, also, LH is repeating the line, white reveals, black conceals. But that is confusing, and you can say it backwards, and it still rhymes. So I think the whole point of that little line is that it rhymes, but it rhymes backwards also. So I don't find it helpful. That's why I like to think of black as blocking the visibility, or I like to think of the light switch in my kitchen. I can't see anything when all the lights are out and it's dark. Yay, good. It seems like this is helpful. Let's see, Teresa has a helpful comment. She says, sometimes I put a bright colored layer below the mask layer, like bright green. Then when I paint the mask, the edges are really obvious. That is a great tip. That'll make it really easy to see if you are missing spots or not. Good stuff, guys. Okay, keep it coming. I've got more examples for you. So let's look at another one. Here I have this image. I found this on Unsplash. Isn't this amazing? I was like, oh my gosh, it's Snow White. Like, she looks so beautiful. And then I happened to also find this scene of like the Seven Dwarfs cottage. I don't know where or how this was made, but I was like, I feel like those two images belong together. So let's make it so. So here we have Snow White in her original scene, and we are going to put her into the little cute cottage. And we're going to do that the way that I tend to start this process most of the time, which is with the smart AI tools that we were just talking about. So my habit is when I want to do this, I just hit W. When I'm like, ooh, I want to remove the background and, mask her. Of course, we don't want to just remove background and disappear it for good. We want to just hide it because maybe it's not perfect and we need to clean it up later. Or maybe we're like, we want to remember where we came from, where we started. We want to have access to that. So we're not going to delete it. We're going to mask it. But we're going to let Photoshop make the mask because it has gotten pretty good at it, as people were saying in the comments. So I start this process by pressing W for the wizard-like selection tools, okay? So W gives you this family of tools. So whichever one was most recently used will be on top. And the nice thing about these tools is that they come with the magical select subject button up here at the top of the screen. So the thing to know about this is that there is a little drop down here, and you can choose to process the selection on your device, which will be faster, or in the cloud, which will be better. And I don't know. I don't know that it really takes that long unless it's more complicated, but you'll see it'll be pretty quick here. So I'm going to set this to the cloud. And then all I'm going to do is click select subject. It's going to take a second, and boom, now we have our subject selected. Now, how do we know if it's a good selection? We can't really tell at this point because we're just looking at marching ants, and marching ants can hide a number of problems. So what we want to do is we want to be able to see the selection as a mask before we make it into a mask. And then we can fix stuff if we need to. And also, there's a great way to do that. So once we've got our selection active, then we can come up here and click on this button, which says select and mask. And I keep calling it refine edges or something. Am I nuts, or did that change at some point? I keep having it wrong in my head, but for whatever, it's called select and mask now. So we click on it. It probably has been for a while, and I just I'm stuck in my brain. All right. So what just happened? Where are we? I'm going to take my face off the screen so you can see this better. We are now in a different workspace. It looks like Photoshop. It is Photoshop, but what happened to our tools and where is our layers panel? We are in basically a giant pop-up window that takes over all of it. So what we're looking at here is our subject, and we're seeing our selection versus everything that was not selected. So Photoshop calls this an onion skin. Oh, here we go. Onion skin switch. So we can see her versus her background. Okay. So I think this is what it does by default, and it's set to like 50%. So it's showing us what is selected versus what is not selected on this layer. So the background is just showing up because it's in the layers panel, it's in the document, but it is not affected by this at all. We're only working on her layer. We're removing her background. So there's a lot of ways we can view what's happening. The onion skin is the default. Of course, marching ants is not helpful. That's where we came from. We could view this as an overlay. So depending on what you're working on, it might be easier to view this with this red rubylith overlay, which you can also change the color of, by the way, if that's something that you think would help you in your particular project. But you can also view it on a black background. So maybe like if you were cutting out somebody from a light background and you want to make sure they're not bringing fringy pixels, then you can put it on this black mat so that you could really see any problems. Kind of like what Teresa was saying about putting in a obnoxious color behind your layer. You can also view it on white, and you can view it in black and white, which I find really helpful because then we can see where we might have soft edges. Maybe those edges are not as crisp as we might want them. So that's nice to see. So let's go back to viewing this, I guess, as an onion skin. And we can adjust the opacity if we want. So maybe I'll just knock that all the way back. And while we're here, we can really zoom in and see like, okay, this looks good, but I can see there's some issues around her bow, for example. So we can use the tools in this workspace to clean that up. We have this tool here, which is basically like the quick selection brush. So it allows us to paint along parts of the image and either add them to our selection or not. And it's like a wizard tool. So it's going to automatically expand the selection based on what's around it. So I'm going to just kind of brush along the edge of her bow here. And then when I let go, it kind of snaps into place. Now you may or may not like what you're getting with that. Over here, it's going to have a hard time with her hair. So another option for hair is this brush that I always think this looks like a meteor crashing to Earth. Do you see this? It always looks like the asteroid, like it's entered Earth's atmosphere and now it's a ball of fire and it's coming for us all. But this is what you want. You want the giant asteroid that's going to end life as we know it. You want that tool. And when you click on it, and I'll make my brush a little smaller, when you use this, you're basically saying, hey, Photoshop, what's going on here? Take another pass at this. And when you brush over it, it may get better or it may get worse. But typically, it actually does a pretty good job. I think the problem here is that it's actually not that bad. Let's see if we can get it. Yeah. I'm going to undo that. Another option, if this is failing you, another option is the refine hair button. And you can click on that and you can see it's doing some difference. I don't think it's helping. In this case, I think I would just come down here and paint this away. So this third tool right here is just the brush tool. So when you do this, you are just painting. So you can see here, if I paint, I'm just painting the background back in. So you either paint to add to it or to subtract, you hold down the Alt or Option key, and now it will minus, and we could just paint this off. And I am on my plugin trackpad for whatever reason, not my regular trackpad. I should be using my Wacom, and it's right here. I just don't have it like on and whatever, but that would help with this. Anyway, that is a quick look at that. Let me just back out of here. And if we want to, we can also come over here and we can make use of these global refinements. So this is going to affect the whole selection, the whole mask, not just a single part, but we could smooth it out if we were having some crispy edges here. We can feather it. So if I extreme this, I'll show you what it looks like. It takes a minute to kind of process, but you can see what I'm really doing. If we switch back here to the black and white view, I'm basically just blurring the black and white mask. So probably not what we want in this case. You can also boost the contrast. That's going to clean up some of these edges. So if we have kind of a fuzzy edge a little bit, you'll notice if I boost the contrast, do you see how that's tightening up? So there's lots of ways you can affect these things. You can also shift the edge inward a little bit. So if you're getting haloing or fringing, you can drag the edge here. If I make it extreme, you can see it's like chomping in. So we definitely would want to see this to make sure we're not cutting in too far because we might be losing. We've shifted in quite a bit actually. So we probably don't want all that. But those are all ways you can play with this. Okay. And then when you're happy with it, we can come over here and at the very bottom of this long list, there's an option to output to. And one of those options is layer mask. So we can click that and we'll click OK. And now we're back. Now we can turn I'll come back and join you. Now we're back in our happy place in Photoshop. And we have a mask. And so now we can continue to edit this mask. Maybe we have some ways in here in Photoshop that we want to fine tune any hair edges. Sometimes with hair, it's actually easier to over mask it and then kind of paint it back with you can actually make or find online like hair brushes that are just like kind of loose, straggly hairs, and you can kind of paint hair back that way. That's a whole other live stream. But it's super easy to do, and it can give you really, really much better results than just straight up masking. So anyway, just know that that's a thing. You can edit the mask as you normally would. And if you're like, I want to go back and now I want to refine the hair again, maybe separately from the initial selection, you can do that. You just double click on that mask thumbnail, and then in the properties panel, you'll have the chance to click select and mask, and it's chewing. And now we're back in our masking space. And now let's try again. Let's see if it does any different on the hair right here. We can just kind of brush over it. No. Okay. That did not help in this case. But sometimes that's all it takes, and that can make a world of difference. So anyway, if you did make a change here and you want to apply it, you would just click OK. I'm going to click cancel. So cool, right? So that is typically the way that I work when I'm starting to build a composite. And typically that would involve cutting someone out from the background. The way I start that is by pressing W for the wizard tools, selecting subject up here in the toolbar or options bar, control panel. And then once my subject is selected, then I'll click select and mask. And then I can go in and kind of fine tune stuff. But it's super great knowing that you don't have to obsess in that workspace because you can get back to it by double clicking your mask here. I don't think you have to you don't have to double click, just single click. And then in the properties panel, you can click select and mask. And so that gives you flexibility. And while we're here, I just want to show you, if you've ever played around in Photoshop Beta, the new harmonize feature is amazing. And I'm going to copy this mask up here, and then I'm going to show you what she looked like when I harmonized her in Photoshop Beta. Look at that. So it's harmonizing her into this scene, and you can see that it has added some color grading, some shadows. Oh my gosh. And now, like, I dare you to think it wasn't just shot in this scene. Amazing, right? So I didn't want to get into it here, but that currently is only in Photoshop Beta, which is free for anybody who wants to. It's in the public beta, so you can install beta and play with it. But I mean, when you're compositing, now it just saves you all the work of manually trying to do all of this. So pretty cool. Let's check in the chat and see what is going on here. Yes. Robin is asking, how do you knock out the background of a person with wild hair in the foreground? Let me just show you really quick, since I know this is a question that everyone will have. I did make an example. Here's an example. Awesome hair. Let's see. So we'll start the same process. So I'm going to press W for my wizard tools. I'm going to click select subject. It's going to process in the cloud. And then I'm going to do select and mask. And I think those tools work better in this image. We'll see. So here we're viewing our subject now on the background that I built into the documents. And you can see the hair looks really crunchy, and we've got color from the other background coming in here. It's just not a very good selection. So we can try our asteroid tool. And I'm just going to come in here and brush right over the hair. So I'm basically saying, Photoshop, look at all this beautiful hair you did not select very well. Take another look at it. Look at that. It worked great in this example, didn't it? Let's do the other side over here. Da-da-da-da-da. On my trackpad. There we go. Let go. Shazam. That looks amazing. You could also try the refine hair button. Maybe, I don't know. Sometimes, like, honestly, it all depends on the image. So you just got to try, and then you undo it and try something else, and maybe you mix in and match them. Another thing that I want to show you that I find to be super amazing, we can see here that her hair is picking up some of that background. So for example, if I hide the mask, if we just reduce the transparency quick, she's in front of a pinkish background, and that color is bleeding into her hair, right? So let's put the mask back up. What we want to do is not have this pink following her into the new scene. So there is an option down here just towards the bottom, just before we get to how we want to export this to a layer mask. There's this option down here called decontaminate colors, and it can be seemingly useless, or it can be jaw-droppingly exactly what you needed. So in this case, it works pretty well. So watch, I'm going to turn this on, boom, and it just like knew that her hair had all this pink, and it just took it out. And then we would say, okay, and we would put this into a new layer with a mask. Amazing. Hopefully that answers your question. I see in the chat, Teresa says, refine hair is just meh. I never use it. Sometimes, yeah, it can be meh. I would say it's probably like 50-50, 60-40. It's in there. But other times I've used it and been like, whoa, my gosh. And I think that it also has to do with, if we go back in, let's go click on the mask, and we'll go back in here to select and mask. I think it also has to do with, come on, here, because when we're using refine hair and the edge detection brush, I believe they're both making use of this setting here, which is the edge detection. And here, if we crank this radius up, we can get different results. So here you can see that does not work very well. In this case, we would want a lower setting, but that is another way that you can kind of finesse what Photoshop is counting as the edge that it's detecting. And I've had some jaw-dropping success with refined hair, which also works on fur, but you do have to kind of use it in combination with this edge detection, and the decontaminate colors is really great and all of that. So pretty amazing. Moving on, I want to show you some other things, other ways, other things to think about. So this is a composite that I made for another project. And I wanted to share it with you. So I have this lovely lady right here, and I'm going to put her into a doomsday scenario where this twister is coming for her. So what I'm going to do is select subject. So we'll just click this little button right here. I'm not going to worry about being perfect right now. That is not the mission of this. So I've got a selection. I'm going to switch to my marquee tool, and I'm going to add to the selection. And what I want is this. So I want her, and I want this chunk of grass. And so they're selected, and now I'm going to hit the mask button. And it's not perfect, and her hair is blurry and all that. It doesn't matter right now. That's not what this is about. Let's turn on the twister, and we'll drag it behind her, and I guess into position. That was up too high. So it's just on the horizon. It's coming for her in the distance. If she would only look around behind her, she would see it. But this looks ridiculous, right? Because we cut her out of grass and we have this razor sharp edge and there should be little grassy bits and that looks silly. So guess what? We can paint on the mask with a grass brush. And everybody has this brush. It's free with Photoshop. It comes with Photoshop, but it's only there if you load it. So to load it, you've got to go to your brushes panel, or you can click up here on your little quick access thingamajig. So I'm clicking up on the little brush preview. And over here under the cogwheel, you're going to click legacy brushes. And that's going to add this folder called legacy brushes. And somewhere in there, if we search for grass, we're going to see this. It's called Dune Grass. This may be my favorite brush of all time. I just love it. I don't know why. It's like such a novelty item, but it's so handy. Okay, so I want to paint with Dune Grass. So I'm going to grab that. Now, something you have to know about this brush is that it has some baked in settings, right? Like any brush. But one of the baked in settings for this brush is that it paints with your foreground background. So if I get off the mask for a minute just to show you, and I'll paint on her layer so you can see. If I paint with it, do you see that it's painting? It's giving me a mix of black and white and the gray in between. And that is awesome when you're trying to paint grass. You would choose a couple shades of green and then it would magically blend between those two shades of green. But in this case, I'm not trying to paint grass. I'm trying to paint a mask in the shape of grass, and I don't want it to do that silly gray business. I just want black or white. So what I need to do is tweak this, and I'm going to pop open my brush settings, and I'm going to turn off the option for color dynamics that is right here. So if we turn this on, it was applying 100% jitter to the foreground and background color, and we don't want it. So I'm just going to turn that off. And I want to paint with, let's see, we want to reveal some more grassy bits here. So I want to make sure I'm on the mask layer and I want to paint with white. I want to shine some more light, turn on so we can see some grassy bits here. And then I'm just going to paint, whoa, it's kind of big. I'm just going to paint along this edge. Like I'm just back and forth putting grass in here. Now, what's really fun and kind of mind trippy is look at this. I can just paint right over her and it's not an issue because why? Because I'm not actually painting grass. What I'm doing is painting the mask that is hiding this part of the image. I'm unhiding it, and I'm unhiding it in the shape of grass. So we're halfway there. This looks pretty good. But of course we have a depth of field issue. So as we can see, when we look at this, she is in focus, but as the grass extends into the field behind her, it becomes blurry. And we can actually look at our mask to see that this is not blurry. The grass should be blurry, right? So how are we going to do that? Well, one thing is let's look at our mask as just black and white. So we want to look not at the mask that's being applied here to the image. We're looking at our final composite. What we want to do is just see the mask itself. And we do that by Option or Alt clicking on the thumbnail of the mask. And now I can see, like, for example, I can see right here that we're seeing this hard edge. Like I basically need to brush over this more. So I'm going to do that. I don't want to see any hard line here. So I might have to kind of do this a lot. You get the idea, right? So I want to fully get rid of this razor sharp edge at the bottom. So I'm just painting over it, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we'll just pretend that's good because we're on a time schedule here. Oh my gosh, but it's just too bad to carry on. Let's get it right. Oh my gosh. Plus, I love this brush. Okay, you get the idea. Okay, now we still have razor sharp brushes, our grass straggles. And what we want to do is soften it. So guess what? one of the tools you probably never otherwise use in Photoshop is the blur tool. So the blur tool is over here. There's not even a built-in shortcut for it because that's how much you use it. You don't, except in cases like this. So it's probably buried under the smudge tool. So it's like in the middle of the toolbar. So you have to click and hold, and you will find the blur tool. And you can play with the strength of the settings and all of that. But what I want to do is just paint over this and look. I am blurring not the image. We're not on the image. We are on the mask. So I am softening these razor sharp grass bits. Now we don't want to paint over her. We don't want her edge to be blurred. We just want the grassy bits to be blurred. So I'm going to not blur her hand or anything, her arm or anything like that, but I'm just doing this. And you don't have to be working in this black and white view. We got here by pressing Alt or Option while we click, and we can repeat that to get out of there. And we can, as long as the mask is active, we can do the same thing right in the image right here. And I might have blurred it a little much, but you get the idea. So now this grass is blurred as it should be in the scene. And again, we're not blurring the image, the picture of the grass. We are simply blurring the mask that we used around it. So if I hide this mask by shift clicking on it, if you shift click, you can temporarily hide the mask so that you can see what you're doing. And if we zoom in, you can see the grass is blurred, like that's just how it was because it's behind her in the distance. It's sharp up here where she is, and it's blurred back behind her. So we are not blurring the grass. We are simply blurring the mask so that it is appropriately soft for that background. So we should probably, then I suppose the tornado should be blurred too. But we would probably just use a filter for that, not the blur tool. So I hope that is explaining things for you a little bit better. One other thing I want to point out is it's really fun with text. So you can also mask text. I'm going to add a quick mask to the text layer here. It's blank right now. And I'm going to come in and select the background, and I'm just going to use the object selection brush. I think it'll do a decent job. I want to select, oh, not that leaf, this leaf. So I have to be on the right layer, and I'm going to select that leaf. Let's select these leaves. Oop, be on the right layer like I just said. Okay, those leaves, this leaf, there we go, and this leaf. Perfect. So now that I have these things selected, I'm going to come on the mask for the type layer, and I'm going to go, we'll do longhand way, edit, and we're going to go fill and black and boom. And now what I wanted to show you is that we can tuck this text into the scene now. So it's like hiding behind the leaves. But what's tricky is if you are doing this, you're going to find you want to move the text, or maybe you want to change the text, and you want to be able to move the text around in the scene without this. What is happening? Look at this. As I move it around, my mask is moving with it because by default, anytime you add a mask, it gets this link. And that means when you move the layer, the mask shifts with it. Sometimes that's what you want. Wonderful. Other times, like this, it's not what I want. So I want to be able to move the text around and just have the mask stay where it is because the mask reflects the leaves and I'm not moving the leaves, right? So to unlink them, we just click on the little link, and now the move tool can move the text and not mess with the mask. You can also select the mask and move the mask around, but that just looks really weird. So So now you can move the text and the mask independently, so that you can make something cool like these tropical vibes. All right. And last but not least, this is a very uninspiring image, but I don't know why it made me think of the Wizard of Oz when I was prepping for this. You know, after the house lands from the twister and Dorothy opens the door and it goes from black and white to color. They didn't do that with a mask back then. We can talk about that in a minute, but we're going to do it with a mask here. So I used Nano Banana to generate this little Oz scene, I guess. And what I want to put it in the door frame here. So I'm going to use my quick selection tool and just brush around in here to get this. I'm going to hold Alt or Option to subtract the edge of the door frame here. And we may have to manually clean up some of that. Brush away this. I want these little knobby bits. Let's come in here and we'll clean that up in a minute. All right, so I've got my selection. This is the layer I want to apply it to. So I'm going to select it and then I'll just click the mask button and everything else goes away. And if there were any weird edges down here that we want to clean up, I'm just going to switch to my brush tool, which is still grass, not what we want. Just a hard round brush, and we want to hide this parts of the layer. And again, if you're not remembering like, oh, do I want black or do I want white here? Just paint with one. And if it's not what you want, then paint it again. Switch and paint it again. So don't lose sleep over it. Okay. So here's our little scene. And then to really kind of make a point here, let's add an adjustment layer to the inside layer. So we want the adjustment to apply inside the scene here because we want to make it look black and white. And clearly there's a lot of color happening. This is super saturated. So I'm going to make a selection layer. I mean, adjustment layer. That's the word. Adjustment layer for hue saturation. And I'm going to colorize this with like a sepia kind of color like that and drag it down like so. And you can see I added an adjustment layer and by default, it comes with a mask. So this white thumbnail, if you've worked with adjustment layers and you're like, what is this white thumbnail that's always hitching a ride along with my adjustment layer? It is a mask. And by default, it's blank. But we can easily replace it with the same mask as here by just Option or Alt dragging this mask up, and it's going to say, do you want to replace it? Yes. But, oh, shoot, it's inversed. Instead of making the house sepia, the inside, it's making Munchkinland or Oz sepia. And that's not what we want. We need to inverse this mask. It's as simple as clicking the mask and pressing Command or Control I for inverse. So look at that. Here we have the lights off, hiding everything about this little Oz layer except what's in the door frame. And here, this adjustment that's saying to make everything sepia, like black and white, here we have the opposite. So the adjustment layer, the black and whiteness, is being applied everywhere except the door frame, which is blocked from this adjustment layer by the black on this mask. Whew. The real way that they did this is they actually just made everything in the house sepia. Like they painted it sepia. And even Dorothy is wearing a sepia version of her famous gingham dress. So that, and it's actually not Dorothy. It was a body double for this scene. It was really interesting, but you can look it up. It's very cool. Okay, let's pop into the chat and see how this has gone down for you. I see that Animated Scripture Studio says you can also use an eraser in place of a white brush. Sometimes, depends where you are, but if you're painting just on a background layer, the white the eraser is going to paint white on the background. So that doesn't always work, so tread with caution on that. I hope I answered your questions about mask. Let's see. Mary says, I just look at the color of the mask and painting with the other will either hide or reveal based on what the mask is doing. That is great. That totally works, Mary. Sometimes I do that too. It's like, you're just like, oh, which one do I need? And I'll just look and be like, I need more black or more white and paint with it. So there are a lot of different ways that you can make sense of it all, but hopefully that is clicking for those of you who are new to masking and maybe you've struggled with it and wondered how the heck, what is happening? I don't understand this. Hopefully today shed some light on that for you. And if you like working in Photoshop and you like taking advantage of all of these different AI tools, definitely check out our Design and AI Summit that is happening next month. And you can save $100 with the code live stream if you go to creativepro.com/events. So I think that does it for today, everybody. Thank you for being here, and let us know in the comments below what other things you'd like to see us tackle in a live stream, and that'll be great. We are here to help. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.